Chapter 5. There he is, down there. He's running across the lower meadow. I'll run after him. You two circle around that far side and try to hit him off. Levi Lamar had hoped to be out of sight before they noticed the bag was missing, but the woman had spotted him and alerted the others. Now it was a foot race. Normally, leaving this bunch in the dust would have been easy. Levi could run like the wind and had uncommon stamina, but the bag of plunder he'd stolen was heavier than he expected, and it slowed him down. There's no way I'm going to get out of here with this bag. Where can I stash this thing? Levi considered turning around and facing his pursuers. The man Levi had seen was much bigger than Levi, but older and slower. Levi was confident he could take him, but even if he couldn't, he would rather lose a fight than run from one. The problem was, he didn't know how many of them there were, and he didn't want to risk losing the plunder he had taken from their camp. Good food was a lot harder to come by here in the high country, and this bag of fruit would keep Levi supplied for quite a while. He made it across the meadow and climbed halfway up the ridge before hiding the bag in some bushes, covering it with branches. He took off running northwest along the tree line. Unhindered by the load, it would be no problem for Levi to put plenty of distance between him and his pursuer, who was still lumbering across the meadow. When he was confident he had made his escape, he turned northward and climbed to the top of the ridge. He would make his way back east along the top of the ridge and then drop down to where he had left the bag. Levi looked forward to enjoying the fruit, and he loved the thought of all the chaos that he had just caused in that camp. It was like kicking an anthill just to watch them scurry around in a panic. There was a thrill in stealing. The more daring the heist, the more satisfying. Levi still relished his last score in the city. All that gold from one house. And the thought of whatever rich snob lived in that house coming home and finding everything gone. A wide grin took over his face whenever he thought about it. When Levi looked at his victims, he saw his drunk father standing over him after a relentless beating. The anger that had built up in him in the years growing up that had no outlet for so long now came out in vicious hostility toward anyone who got in his way. He heard a noise behind him, but before he could turn, something struck the back of his head, sending him to the ground. He winced in pain, but was instantly back on his feet, facing the one who'd struck him. A young guy, maybe Levi's age, crouched and still holding his club. "I've got him!" the man yelled, and 3 others quickly arrived, surrounding Levi. The kid with the stick won't be a problem, Levi thought, sizing up the situation. The 2 standing below him didn't look like fighters either. But the one standing up the hill from him looked like a guy who could handle himself. In a fight, the size of a man's muscles is the least important factor. What matters more is his ability to take punishment. This fellow looked like a hard man who had worked with his hands. His skin was rough, and the stubble on his square, grizzled jaw barely hid a scar on the left side of his face. The rest of the man's face was shaded by the brim of a leather hat that had seen better days. Levi felt blood flowing down the back of his neck and decided if this fight was going to happen, sooner was better than later. He took a step and launched himself toward the 2 men on his left. Levi's fist connected with the first man, and he felt the man's nose break. Using his momentum, he tackled the other man. They tumbled several feet down the hill, and Levi ended up on top. He gave the man one good shot to the face, knocking him out. Levi's first impulse was to grab a nearby stone and crush the man's skull. He thought nothing of taking a life, but for some reason, he chose not to this time. Levi leapt quickly back to his feet. With those 2 out of the fight, he could focus on the man with the hat. He needed to get on even ground. Too late. The man's leathery fist pounded Levi with a force that rivaled any punch he had ever felt, and he had taken a lot of punches. The blow sent Levi tumbling backward down the hill. He quickly arrested his fall. In an instant, he was back on his feet, trying not to show his dizziness. Another blow came to the back of his head with that heavy stick as the kid had maneuvered below him. This time Levi could not spring back to his feet. Through blurred vision, he saw 4 more men had arrived. The man with the hat stood over him. "You got one last chance, boy. Tell us where that bag is." "How should I know where your wife is? Can't you keep track of the old bag yourself?" Levi cursed his own smart mouth as the man's boot smashed into the side of his head. Merciless pounding from all the men followed, and Levi lost consciousness. Levi had stolen hundreds of times before, but he never could have dreamed the sequence of events this theft would put into motion. The world would be changed forever. Morax reported to the commander. "The fruit is in place. What do you want done with Levi?" "Let him die," the commander replied. "He could have killed the man he tackled, but he didn't. In the past, he has killed for us without hesitation. I sense his conscience is stirring in him. He has served his purpose. Better for him to die now than to risk losing him."